Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2022 film Deadstream. It's a Shudder original, and it's coming to Shudder on Thursday, October 6th, so this is a no-spoiler review. Gonna give a disclaimer, I'm not a big fan of found footage films, which is what this film is, but I am gonna recommend this film because I enjoyed it quite a bit. It had a lot of things to it that really enhanced my experience with it and made me really okay with found footage, which is a big feat in my opinion. So I would say this is a film that if you are into found footage, you must see this film. Like, this is a must, especially because it's basically like a parody. It's poking fun at found footage. It's poking fun at found footage. It's poking fun at ghost hunting. It's poking fun at people who do live streams, like content creators, influencers. It pokes fun at a lot, but it does it in a very fun, upbeat, and kind of good-spirited way. And you'll see what I mean when you check it out. No pun intended on that, though, the good-spirited. Written and directed by Joseph Winter and Vanessa Winter, who will be involved in the film VHS 99, which is also coming to Shudder in October. Like I said, Shudder original coming Thursday, October 6th. Quick synopsis, because I don't want to give too much away. It's literally about a guy who's had been kicked off of whatever platform he was on, demonetized, basically. You know, he's kind of like a YouTuber type or Twitch type. And he's getting back into it, and he's trying to go big. He's trying to, really excite his audience, which, there's a whole thing there that is like pointing at real-life influencers and creators and how they tend to do things and kind of go over the top with things. So he decides to pull the stunt of going to investigate a truly haunted house, basically. And things don't go well because it's a horror film. So I'm not going to tell you in what way they don't go well, but no, it's a found footage film, and you get some very interesting perspectives and some footage, basically. So it's good. I'm not going to give you any more synopsis-wise. I don't want to kill any of the experience of it, but I am going to tell you things I did and did not like about it without spoilers. The beginning is very over-the-top ridiculousness, which is very much intentional. I think it helps to, A, establish who the main character is, B, establish what they're going for here, like what they're trying to make nods to, what they're trying to make fun of. And it also establishes this kind of like upbeat, fun feeling to the film that maintains throughout. So like there are actual like horror moments to it, but you never feel like scared. You never feel like, oh my gosh. Well, actually in a few instances you might. There are some moments that are kind of like jump scare-esque, and I could see some people falling for that, but for the most part it just had a really like light, fun feel that just maintained through the whole thing, which I personally really enjoyed because there aren't that many like parody horror films or horror comedies, which this one does have comedic stuff to it. I wouldn't consider it a horror comedy necessarily, although I'm sure a lot of people would, because the humor isn't like, I don't know, it's more subtle humor, and I think you get it a lot better if you're familiar with kind of like found footage and those tropes. Also, content creators and how they are, and ghost hunting type stuff. So I think the people who know those things relatively well are going to get the maximum experience out of the film, so just know that. There's good humor that spawns from poking fun at found footage and all those other things that I named. There were a few things I did laugh at, but a lot of the humor for me was more of like a internal chuckle a little bit, but I did have a good laugh at one thing that I'm actually going to mention at the end, but it won't give anything away. It's literally 2 words, and you'll only get it if you've seen the film. They do a good job of covering their bases when it comes to things that could become unbelievable in this film. It's all basically baked into the story very early on. They literally do a really good job of just being like, let us establish right now, within the context of this story, all the things that people would watch in this film and be like, well, they wouldn't do that because of this. Well, what if they did that? They take care of all that stuff. So there's a lot of thought and time that really went into the script to kind of get those things out of the way and make sure that people weren't sitting there being preoccupied with like, oh yeah, right. It's believable within the story that's created, which says a lot about it. I think they did a really good job with it. They're very smart about working lots of cameras and camera angles into the film in a believable way. That's another thing, which I greatly appreciate. There's always a challenge in trying to figure out within the context of this found footage story, how are you going to get good camera work? How are you going to get extra angles? How are you going to shoot things? They were smart. They were extremely smart. There are multiple cameras used. They made them work within the story. Like, they're literally introduced in the story. Like, the character says, like, I'm putting this camera here, and I have this camera and this camera. So it can show you so much, and it gave the filmmakers so many options, which probably was a lot easier for them than to actually shoot the thing. But they did a good job. They were very smart in a lot of ways with this film. The live stream aspect of this has some added perks, like interaction with the viewers that the main character has, which can be pretty funny. Also, just seeing, because they actually have like the chat going on like on camera, not the whole time, like from time to time when it actually matters. Like, they have the chat kind of like scrolling, and if you read it, there's some funny stuff. There's some stuff that just looks very normal as far as like chat goes. And one of my favorite things, and the main character calls it out from time to time, but like reading it too is a fun time. The names of some of these people, their online names, pretty good. So like I got some chuckles out of that. I got some chuckles out of the comments that this individual was getting, and that interaction. Like, that interaction adds a new aspect to a found footage film that I hadn't experienced before. Maybe there is another found footage film that's out there that's like this, but I haven't seen it. So for me, this was pretty fresh. This was a new take on found footage, and I like this take. I prefer it very much to a lot of the other found footage I've seen. For a found footage film, the camera work is actually pretty smooth, which I'm very glad about. A lot of the times in found footage, it's just like crazy shaky camera all the time. Even in moments where they don't need to be that shaky, it's like overdone. With this one, you can tell they really tried to be as smooth as possible with the camera work, but also make it feel believable, as in this guy is operating the cameras. So they walked a fine line, and I think they did a really good job with that. The lighting's really good in this. That's another thing. Which some people may be like, oh, I want like darker lighting because it's like horror related, make it a little bit more scary. But that's not really what it's about, because like there's that kind of like light, fun, comedic aspect to it. They don't really need that, and I appreciate that it was pretty well lit. The only thing that the really good lighting does cause problems with is the practical effects aren't great. They're not terrible, but you can tell it's a very low budget film. I mean, it's a Shudder original. You don't get a lot of money for making a Shudder original, but they're good enough for A, the tone of the film, so you kind of like excuse it to a degree, and B, they don't show it too long, but for the amount of time that they do show it, you can see looks a little bit wonky, looks kind of cheap, because the lighting is so good. So that's one of the downsides on the film, but it wasn't a big deal for me, really. It definitely takes a turn that's unexpected and welcomed in this film. I was expecting it to continue a certain way, but there is a point in the film where it actually really turns. And there is an actual story here. It's not just about trying to be funny and just doing that with no real story. There is an actual story, and it's relatively compelling. And the way it plays out works quite a bit, in my opinion. So they weren't just like, oh, we're just going to make fun of stuff. They're like, we're going to do something more. They're basically fusing like a parody with like an actual found footage that they're doing. So that's cool. The practical effects aren't great. Oh yeah, I already talked about that. Also the camera work helps out with how they shoot it, not showing it for too long. Good ending to the film. Obviously, I'm not going to elaborate past that. Good ending to the film. And it has really good pacing for being a found footage film. One of the biggest problems with found footage is it's baked into the genre that pacing is typically going to be kind of crappy unless you can come up with a good creative way to not make it crappy. They certainly did that here. The film flies by. I think it was like an hour and 27 minutes with credits. So, yeah, I'm a fan. Joseph Winter, who was one of the writer-directors and also played the lead character of Sean, His line delivery sounds a lot like Ryan Reynolds. So if you like that style of line delivery, not as funny, but that style of line delivery, you may very well like his performance. I did. Like, I thought all the performances in this were really good. Good job, cast. One thing I really appreciated, beef cam. This is that 2-word thing I told you I was going to say. I'm not going to elaborate past it, but I really enjoyed beef cam. Probably my favorite part of the film. I know it's a very small thing. If you've already seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. We can comment down here and go back and forth about it, but I really enjoyed beef cam. It's a small part of the film, but caught me off guard, got a good laugh out of it, enjoyed it. And gonna reiterate, a lot of thought went into this script, and I love, love, love seeing that. You can tell that the individuals who did this, the Winters, Joseph and Vanessa, they cared. They put a lot of time and effort into it, and they really, really cared. They did a nice job. So, out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm gonna give it a 4-star rating. I was thinking 3.5, but then I'm like, you know what? Because found footage is hard to do this way, and they kept it really moving. They kept it light and fun. They did some new stuff I haven't really experienced in found footage before, and they made me, a person who doesn't really like found footage, enjoy found footage. I gotta give it 4 stars. I really do. So, would love to hear your opinions on this film when you see it, or if you've already seen it. Go ahead and put it in the comments in between. Good, bad, whatever you think. But just give me like a sentence or two telling me why. Don't just say I like it, I don't like it. Give me a little bit why. And we can talk about it. You can do spoilers in the comments too. Go ahead. So everyone know there could be spoilers in the comments. You might not want to read them if you haven't seen the film. But see it. I definitely recommend people see it. Do me a quick favor. Hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It is quick, painless, costs you nothing, and it keeps me motivated. And I thank you very much for that. I love it. I love growing the viewer base, because then that means I have a higher likelihood of getting more comments from people, because that's why I started my channel in the first place, just to kind of connect with other nerdy horror people. Because where I live, can't really engage people like this on horror, and it's crappy, but that's what the internet's for, right? So also hit the notification bell button, then you'll know when I'm putting up my new videos. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you very much for taking your time to watch this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.